here's what I find with inflammation. Because if you're like, okay, this sounds like me, this sounds like something I need to work on. Okay, what do I do? What do I do? Well, first we look at, again, labs, the right labs, enough labs to make sure we're addressing all of the issues here. And we start with attacking it from a lot of different angles. I am a person, and not every practitioner believes this. Not every person in the health field has the same approach. So again, I'm just sharing with you the information here. If you're like, that's crap, everybody just needs to eat sea moss and that's what's going to help. Oh, okay, but sea moss doesn't work for everyone, right? So I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge fan of doing things specifically that are going to address the things that you need without just throwing everything at you, right? I don't want to throw the kitchen sink at you. We're going to narrow it down, but we're going to attack it from different angles. Hey there, welcome to the Female Health Solution podcast, where we discuss women's health, hormones, and everything else in between. Join me as we dive into the tools that you need to live your healthiest life. Can inflammation impact hormone balance, right? Does having a lot of inflammation mean that hormones are going to be imbalanced or disrupt your cycle, things like that? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Let's dive into inflammation and the connection with hormones overall. So I'm Dr. Beth Westy, women's health and hormone expert. I am host of the podcast, The Female Health Solution. We are going to talk about all things inflammation today. Now, one of the things that's really difficult about inflammation in general is it's really hard to see and measure and almost put your finger on sometimes. It's kind of like stress. Unless you're doing a Dutch test, unless we're measuring specifically what your specific cortisol levels are, or measuring specifically what some of your inflammatory levels are, which we see on a Dutch test, right? You can also do some blood testing for inflammatory levels too. It can be really tough to pinpoint exactly, okay, this is what it is, this is what it's doing, etc. So I'm going to give you some examples of inflammation and how it shows up, especially in the female body. It can be any type of swelling that you have, any type of puffiness, whether it be puffiness on the face, right? Puffiness in your hands. Maybe you go for a walk and you're like, I don't understand. I'm going for a walk. This is supposed to be healthy for me, but I feel so puffy. My hands get puffy and tight. I get joint pain. I wake up and my body feels achy and slow and sluggish and heavy. Inflammation. Bloat. My gut feels bloated and puffy. I do fine in the morning, but as soon as I eat lunch, it looks like I'm 4 months pregnant because my belly just bloats out. Inflammation, right? Inflammation. I get headaches. I have ringing in my ears. I have fatigue all the time. I just don't feel right. My brain feels fuzzy. Inflammation. I have skin issues. I have, even histamine reactions can be connected with inflammation. There's so many things. It's almost an endless list of indicators that you have inflammation, right? But here's the thing is if you are inflamed or feeling like you're having a negative reaction or something, it can really be there for a reason. Like, for example, if you sprain your ankle will get inflamed, get red, swollen, lots of fluid, be stiff and hurt to make sure you don't injure it further. It's trying to protect it. So the body never does anything without a reason. Your body is creating this inflammatory response for a reason to let you know, hey, warning, alert, something's wrong, something's off. It may be that your digestive system is messed up, so your belly gets bloated when you're eating. You might have intolerance to some of the food that you're eating. You might have imbalanced bacteria. Maybe you have H. pylori. Maybe you have a candida. Again, we see this on a GI map, right? We identify these things, but it's telling you something's wrong. And just to keep going along and like hoping that the next day it'll be better, and it's not, that really tells us where your system's at. So when we work through this process, part of it is looking at labs, looking at the right labs to make sure we're targeting things. If you're like, yeah, I got a blood test and they did a CRP, C-reactive protein, HSCRP, high sensitivity C-reactive protein lab, that can be helpful, right? But if you're within range on that, oh, well, I guess I don't have inflammation. Wrong. Just because that marker didn't pop up doesn't mean you don't have inflammation. Again, there's other areas, systems, things, and signs and signals and labs that we can do that will show us that inflammatory reaction. The biggest indicator overall that I think is so important is you. Do you feel inflamed? Do you feel like this is an issue? Do you feel like this is something you need to target? If yes, then let's do it, right? Because this will get in the way of your hormones and everything else. It is also a really tough cycle with cortisol and inflammation, right? It's like this, it's like they're in competition of what's going to get worse. Your stress increases, your inflammation level increases. Your stress then increases because your inflammation level increased. And then because your stress is higher, now your inflammation is going to go higher. And just let's put out all the fires, right? Having too much inflammation can also impact your ovulation schedule, you ovulating consistently and regularly. It can impact how you process hormones out. So it can impact how your body's ability is, what your body's ability to regulate your estrogen level overall is, meaning it can lead towards more estrogen dominance or that excess estrogen being built up in your system. It disrupts those hormones for sure, right? It can prevent you from getting really quality deep sleep and turning those things over. It can get in the way of your hunger and satisfaction hormones, which means that it can contribute to insulin resistance, weight loss resistance, all this stuff. It's all connected. Here's what I find with inflammation, because if you're like, okay, this sounds like me, this sounds like something I need to work on, okay, what do I do? What do I do? Well, first we look at, again, labs, the right labs, enough labs to make sure we're addressing all of the issues here. And we start with attacking it from a lot of different angles. I am a person, and not every practitioner believes this. Not every person in the health field has the same approach. So again, I'm just sharing with you the information here. If you're like, that's crap, everybody just needs to eat sea moss and that's what's going to help. Oh, okay, but sea moss doesn't work for everyone, right? So I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge fan of doing things specifically that are going to address the things that you need without just throwing everything at you, right? I don't want to throw the kitchen sink at you. We're going to narrow it down, but we're going to attack it from different angles. What are the angles? How do we know all of that other stuff? Again, that we look at a Dutch test. We look at a GI map sometimes. So what this may look like are things like, okay, here's some certain supplements that are going to help. One of my favorites is called Inflamed from Nutridyne. All right, turmeric, things like that. Quercetin, again, if there's a histamine reaction, that's very specific for certain people. Foods, your nutrients. Let's get in foods that are going to help decrease inflammation and also not increase inflammation. Those are two different categories, my friends. Yeah. Let's look at your exercise, your activity levels. Are you exercising too much, too intensely, and not giving yourself enough rest that you're kicking off inflammation? Let's look at your stress levels. And just saying that can open up this whole other world of what we look at for stress. Is it physical stress, emotional stress? Is there a turd burger at work that you have to encounter all the time, right? Are there chemical stressors that you're exposed to in terms of, oh yeah, oh my God, there's this one gal. She works in a middle school. She's a middle school administrator. And on days when she has to encounter lots of students that spray themselves with all these things, she's like, oh my gosh, I will get a headache. I will feel like garbage and be exhausted. And I'm like, yeah, that's contributing to your inflammation. Endocrine disruptors, those sprays, those things. Yeah, for sure. So limiting that exposure as much as possible. She lives in a warmer state, right? I live in Minnesota, so chilly here, but she lives in a warmer state. So she's able to have some of these meetings outside. And she's like, that makes a huge difference. Isn't that crazy? So just some of that stuff, like if you're exposed to chemicals and things like that, that can increase your inflammatory reaction, right? So this is all part of what we look at. And if you're like, oh my gosh, what else do we do, right? It depends on you specifically. How do we know for you specifically? Go in the links, click that link, get on the wait list. We work together on this in the Female Hormone Solution Program. This is all of it. I'm never going to tell you just to, take this supplement. That should clear it up just like that. Because that's often not enough. We have to look at all of it. What supplements are you getting in? What's your nutrient level like? What's your sleep like? What's your stress like? What are you exposed to on a regular basis? How are your pathways working? This is another category to look at. How is your body actually functioning? Do you sweat regularly? Are you able to clear that stuff out and reset your body? Are you dry brushing? Are you doing Epsom salt baths? Are you using red light to help decrease the inflammatory reaction? Right? Is this important to target for you? Yes? Then let's do it. And if you're like, this seems like a really big list, or how do I narrow it down what's right for me and what I can do? That's where it's so helpful that you have that guidance. That's where, again, go in the links, click that link, get on the list, ask questions right off the bat. Hey, I have this, or I feel fine in the morning. I don't feel fine in the afternoon. Or at the end of the day, my pants feel so tight, it hurts my stomach. They're so tight. But in the morning, I can get them on just fine. What the heck? Inflammation. Can your body get that inflamed just throughout the day? Yes, it can. Are there things you can do to help target that, to decrease that? Absolutely. But knowing more about what you have going on in your system specifically, that way I can say, oh, do these 2 things, do these 3 things. This is going to be, out of all the things listed, these are the top things to focus on for you. That's what's going to make the biggest impact. Again, it cuts away all that stuff. There's so much information out there. Having that guidance allows you to just focus on what's right for you and, again, move through it faster. You're not worried about all these other things. You're not focused on all this other stuff. Again, I call it a cheat code. You get the cheat code. You get the roadmap, the shortcut between where you are now and where you want to be. Right there. You take that shortcut because you have that guidance every step of the way. That's what the benefit of working together allows you. And it's easy to implement. There are things that you can keep doing, and they're the right things for your health, your lifestyle, and to keep moving forward with. So that's what I got for you guys today. Thank you for being here. Thank you for tuning in. Let me know if you have any other questions. Let me know if there's a topic you want to cover, if you want to dive in more. I've got some really exciting stuff that's coming up, so don't hesitate to stay tuned for some fun things. But I just appreciate you guys being here so much. And, get on that wait list, click that link, make sure you join us, and I will see you guys later. Thank you for joining me on today's episode. If you would like more information, just head on over to drbethwesty.com for all the show notes and information from today's episode. And if you're looking for more community, more support, you can find and follow me on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and I would love to see you there.